Hello guys, my name is Anna and I'm from Ukraine, and I vlog daily to keep you updated on the real-life situation in my country, Ukraine, during this awful war with Russia. And we will win this war, and you have to see it. Not only to see it, I'm extremely grateful for the efforts that you apply to help us win. And today, as a Ukrainian, I watched very attentively the speech of our president in the Congress, and perhaps there are things that I would love to share with you. One of the very first experiences that is pretty rare for a citizen in this modern world is to be extremely proud with your president. Honestly, before Zelensky, I have never felt like this much emotions when I listened to my president. Some presidents were good, some presidents were bad, but typically a politician is a person you are not fascinated with. It's not an artist, it's not a writer, and to become successful in this career, there are lots of things that you have to compromise, and it is very often that you support one branch of his actions or her, and then you dislike the other one. But now, during this war, Zelensky has become a symbol of Ukraine. And for me, looking the way people greeted him and they applauded 21 times standing, this for me symbolizes the attitude to Ukraine. And he represents us in a really good way. So honestly, I have forgotten about the things that I liked or disliked about him, about some of his political decisions, like about his life before this war. For me, he is the president of war. And for me, he is a president that made this life, survival, strength, and fight back possible. I honestly believe that with other politicians whom I personally supported or liked before the start of this war, it is very likely that we would have started negotiating, giving up our territories. So for me, Zelensky is a symbol of a person who is ready to fight for his land. That's why I'm super happy that he was supported by the people of the USA and the citizens of other countries like and respect him. For me, he is a symbol of Ukraine, of that spirit of Ukraine that was awarded the Person of the Year by the Times magazine. There were lots of important messages that he spoke very clearly to the very influential audience. And I think it's important that he is not tolerant, that he is not a typical politician or a diplomat that can negotiate anything on the planet. He speaks very straightforwardly, and it's very vital during the war, because during the war, hundreds and thousands of people die daily. Destructions cost us millions of dollars, and traumas that we receive daily, they cannot be measured. That's why he has to be categoric, he has to be straightforward, and that's what actually I saw in his conversations with the top politicians of the US. One of the very important messages that I personally like is that he considers that Kremlin must be won on a battlefield, not in this diplomatic field anymore. And I support this 100%. And I think that, I know actually that 99% of Ukrainians support this idea too. Because there were times for negotiations before the crimes of Bucha, before the destruction of Mariupol, before the missile attacks on our energetic infrastructure. And now, after so many crimes committed, there is nothing to negotiate. And as Zelensky states, Putin is no more a subject of international relations, because he is a criminal, he is a terrorist, and one do not negotiate with terrorists. I think it's totally understandable. We cannot imagine Osama bin Laden, for example, being present at some kind of negotiations and people trying to understand what exactly could particularly satisfy him and stop him from. No, these are criminals. Whether they have nuclear weapons or not, they are dangerous terrorists that can cause the problems for all the planet, what Putin actually does. Another important thing is that it's vital not to freeze this conflict, not to start negotiations, and not to ignore war in Ukraine, because it has global influence. And if we give Putin some time to strengthen up, to mobilize more people, we can lose. And that will lead to other problems. He will not stop in Ukraine. That's why it's very, very important not to stop in this war, because the world is very much interconnected. the United States, China, Latin America, Europe, Asia. It seems like we are far away from each other, we are different, but at the same time, a problem in one part of the world can cause serious problems in another. We see that Russian war in Ukraine caused lots of problems all over the world. Danger of famine, prices rising, I don't know, some conflicts appearing, but Ukraine is not to blame for that. World is not to blame for that. Putin and his Russia are to blame for that. It is their responsibility. I personally hate when people start saying like war in Ukraine caused famine in. No, Putin's war in Ukraine, Russian war in Ukraine, because it causes sufferings both for Ukraine and for people in other corners of the world. It's vital to remember about that. Also, we are very grateful, every Ukrainian is very grateful for time, money and effort that you spend on our people and on our country. But I agree with our president when he said that money that you spend on Ukraine and supporting us with weapons, this is not charity. This is investment. This is something that is important not only for Ukraine, but for the rest of the world too, because we have to protect, to guarantee world peace. And Ukrainians are very responsible in that. And we are working really hard to stop this war on the territory of our country, not to let it burn further. And we sacrifice a lot of things. Of course, it's not only for the rest of the world, it is also for ourselves, for our existence. But at the same time, it is important for the rest of the world too. So it's not charity, it's investment. And we are very grateful for the support that we see and feel. And I'm sure you also see that like when Lend-Lease started, all these results are very, very visible. Also, terrorists must be punished, and Russians are now terrorists because the way they act within Ukraine, what crimes they commit against humanity, examples of genocide and terrorist attacks on civilians, destructions of our cities, hospitals, schools, and whatever are examples of terrorism, global terrorism, and they must be punished according to the international laws that are applicable for the terrorists. Also, it's important to know, and it is the message not just from President Zelensky, but from all of us, we will never give up. We went through so many terrible situations and we are alive. We are more alive than ever before, and we are strong. We are grateful for support and we do not plan to give up, never ever, because this is an existential fight and we have everything to win. We have bravery, we have strength, we have knowledge, we have support, and we have this spirit. President gave an illustration of the city of Bakhmut, which is one of the hottest zones right now in Ukraine on the front line. What is also very important and was discussed here in Ukraine, that before going to the USA, he first visited Bakhmut, and only then, after meeting with our soldiers, he traveled to meet the American Congress. So Bakhmut was a town of 70,000 inhabitants, and now there's just a few civilians left. There are lots of cities that Russians erased, destroyed, drowned in blood of Ukrainians, including Ukrainian children. And we are not allowed to forget about that. We are not allowed to make these catastrophes and tragedies as statistics, because like such evil things must be punished. And once again, after doing all that, Putin is no more a subject of international relations. He can be a convict, he can be a prisoner, but not a president of the country to talk to. Also, Zelensky told the Congress and people that we are planning to celebrate Christmas, and so do I and my family. Today, for example, on the media, we have forecast that we might have new missile attacks today on the 22nd or tomorrow on the 23rd, because they will congratulate us with Christmas. But we are prepared and we will celebrate Christmas, because Christmas is very much about these values that we share. And I think this war of Russia in Ukraine demonstrates the war between evil and good. And what is important, despite all of these problems, Ukraine is very alive and very strong. These were final words of Zelensky in Congress. And I hope you understand that the message that stands behind these words is that we are not going to give up. Never, ever. Also, he gave the war flag of Bakhmut to the representatives of the Congress. And I think it's important when you can touch these artifacts, because for many people who have never been to Ukraine, for many people who do not follow news very attentively, this is something far away, like something that happens on Mars or elsewhere. But this war is so real. It's present in every Ukrainian house, even in semi-safe zones like mine, because I know that at 10 o'clock I will not have electricity. I know that it might be that my Christmas will be without hot water, heating, and anything else. I'm afraid of the news that I read. I like people who travel abroad, they say like, oh my God, I have asked my friend today, he came back from Bucharest, and I have asked him, like, what did you like about Bucharest? And he said, well, they have electricity and they don't have this like martial law rules. Can you imagine like what kind of life we have now? And sometimes it feels like if you learn a Ukrainian, you would think that, okay, they are weird guys. We're not always weird. We were not weird at all before the start of this war. Also, like, I know there were different ideas about the vision of peace and victory, and not all of them are supported by Ukrainians, and we are not going to compromise our territories. So we have to get back our territories that we had in 1991 when Ukraine proclaimed its independence. No sacrifice of Crimea or Donbass is possible. And it's very important for the rest of the world to understand that we are not going, after so many losses, we are not going to compromise. No, never. Especially with this criminal terrorist Putin. And one of the very important messages that I also think about is the thing that living in a safe country, being like thousands of miles away from Ukraine, it seems like you're very far away. But you can make decisions that can save literally millions of humans' life. And we are very grateful for the weapons that we receive, for Patriot systems and other things that are necessary for us to stop Russians from raping and looting Ukrainian land. We're not going to enter Russia to destroy Russia. We are going to protect Ukraine and to save our country and to continue living the way we want. But even if it seems like that you are in a safe room, you're far away from all that, some decisions that you make, some choices that you make can lead to the saving of millions of Ukrainian lives, and not only Ukrainian maybe, because if this war continues, more dangers are posed on other countries. And that's why I believe it is very, very important to continue supporting Ukraine. And I'm grateful for your attention to my channel. If you're new, please subscribe and share my videos, because the world needs to know more about Ukraine. Kremlin, Peskov and Putin, they said they were concerned with the visit of Zelensky to the United States. Perhaps they will congratulate us on these occasions, but we are prepared. And I think that as many people in Ukraine, in the US, and all over the world agree, Putin has already lost this game, lost this war. He's just like dying. The problem is that so many people die while he is dying. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons. I hope that your Christmas preparation week is going fine. And those of you who don't celebrate, I'm sure there are other things that you can celebrate. Thank you for your support and being with me. Slava Ukraini!